listening to The Kula Ring, a podcast made for manufacturing marketers. Here are Carman Perry and Jeff White.
Welcome to The Kula Ring, a podcast for manufacturing marketers brought to you by Kula Partners. My name is Jeff White, and joining me today is Carman Perry. Carman, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. You?
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's a rainy Monday morning, but it's a good time to record a podcast.
That is true. We should, although with the gear, you shouldn't hear any kind of pitter-patter of the rain or anything.
No.
Although it would be kind of nice and mild. It would be soothing, really.
Yeah, no, it's not mild. It's almost freezing outside while it's raining.
True.
Yeah, but that's very Canadian of us to talk about the weather.
Always. Let's talk about today's guest instead.
Yeah, why don't we do that? So joining us today is Taylor Smith. Taylor is the technical sales and marketing person at PSNERGY. Welcome to the Kula Ring, Taylor.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you could join us.
And the technical sales and marketing person, like she's the one that does those two things. Hey, man, it's a real setup for you, Taylor, to kind of. I got a visual right away of you being in charge of pretty much the entire ship. But look, let's just understand what PSNERGY is for our listeners and tell us more about you.
Yeah, so PSNERGY is a technical solution company for big steel, aluminum, and zinc companies. So we primarily focus on combustion, and that is the energy used to produce heat that heats up steel products or aluminum products used in melting, heat treating, things like that. And we monitor the combustion at the burner level. We give you updates through an app, basically helping you reduce emissions and increase your bottom line, which would be your throughput through the furnace.
Very cool.
That's really cool.
Ed, tell us a bit more about your role there and kind of how you got into the industry.
Yeah, so my role in technical sales and marketing, it's pretty cool. I started in the industry about 4 years ago. I was a Division I athlete, a bowler, which that's kind of cool. You don't find those very often.
You are the first Division I bowler on the Kula Ring podcast, for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know that that's a thing. So I love telling people that. That's always like my one fun fact about myself.
Well, before we go any further, how do you feel about the two-handed bowling that's going on right now?
Okay, I am biased because I'm a female. So, we talk a lot about revolutions in bowling, and that's basically like the revs on the ball, which help you get a hook into the pocket and get a strike. You get so many revs when you're a two-handed bowler, but, it's all about accuracy and muscle memory. So if they can do it that way, that's awesome. I cannot do it. I've tried. I could never.
But you don't think they should be banned from the sport because they're just bastardizing it with this weird two-hand thing, and meanwhile you've got the one-handed craft.
No, I don't think they should be banned. It's just very different. Maybe it should be its own sector of bowling, but there's definitely an upper hand when you're a two-handed bowler. But really, it does all come down to that muscle memory.
No pun intended.
I know, with the upper hand. Come on.
That's good. Interesting to hear. It's an interesting moment in sports for that. I was watching some videos about it a couple weeks ago.
It's one of those, like, when was the last time you saw any controversy or discussion about bowling at all, other than like the guy that had the really over the top celebration?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, you don't know who I am, I don't know, who do you think you are, I am, or whatever, some sort of weird reaction. But other than that, and then the two-handed bowling, that's it. But
what people don't realize is that we cheered for college bowling just like college football. We would turn around after a strike screaming at the top of our lungs. It was crazy. And you would never think that.
It does change the perspective or the image, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, beyond bowling,
yeah,
Taylor, how did you end up at PSNERGY?
Yeah. When I was in Brooklyn, New York, on my Division I bowling scholarship, I was studying communications, and I couldn't find an internship in the city. It was the end of 2019. I was in my junior year, and I couldn't find any sort of internship that interested me. So my dad called me up and he told me he worked at Elwood City Forge at the time, and he told me that his company was looking for summer help. And I took that as, oh, a marketing internship. And I was so excited. So I went home for the summer, and my first day on the job, you're sitting through training and they're talking about hard hats and safety glasses and, well, you need to get steel toe boots. And I was so confused. Like, am I not going to be sitting in the office? And I showed up the next day and I spent my entire summer painting the yellow safety lines on the floor of the shop. So that was cool. I remember I was so angry with my dad. It's like, why am I doing this? This has nothing to do. I have no interest in this. And I hated it. I hated going to work every day until I made my way to the end of the plant. They called it the DMAG area. And that's kind of where they staged all of the steel. So they would have the steel staging there. They'd load it into the furnace, take it out, glowing red hot, and then forge it. And I remember when I got down to that section and I saw the furnace doors open and a huge manipulator goes over and picks up this giant piece of steel, and they take it over and start pressing it. And I was in awe. My jaw was on the floor, just standing there looking at, I thought it was so cool. I had never seen anything like it. And, from that moment on, I decided I want to be in this industry. And I truly had no idea how I was going to do that with my marketing degree or my communications degree. I didn't know that there were different areas in manufacturing. I didn't know that manufacturing needed marketers or people in sales and things like that because, I was never exposed to it. But I ended up taking an internship in Erie through my senior year. I did that remote while I lived in Brooklyn. And then I moved here for a full-time position as a marketing coordinator at a furnace manufacturer. And then, throughout my journey there, I had really realized that I want to be in sales. And I saw a really good opportunity at PS Energy, and I had to jump on it.
That's interesting to me. So you were in a marketing coordinator role, but it's actually sales is more your interest and inclination in the marketing side.
It is. And that's really because, in the industry, you see a lot of siloed sales and marketing teams. And I just don't think that that's the way that it should be. My role now in technical sales and marketing is kind of, I like to call it the bridge between sales and marketing. So I really take those customers from step one, which is prospecting, through the buyer's journey, through the purchase order, onboarding, educating, things like that. And that has helped me grow so much in both sales, but also on the marketing side.
How has that exposure to the sales side of the equation changed how you think about marketing?
So I think a lot of people think, you have marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads. So something that's really cool in our operation is we don't necessarily have marketing qualified leads. We have sales qualified leads, and those are the leads that we market to. So it sounds kind of weird. Like I said, I take the customers from prospecting through the buyer's journey, and that really allows me to see, okay, this is who we should be focusing on. These are our target market customers. And as you see those customers go through the buyer's journey and you see kind of the obstacles and roadblocks that they have, it helps you address those earlier in the even in the marketing aspect of it, rather than, getting a couple months into the sales process. You can kind of address all of those concerns earlier, and then it's not as big of a deal as you go through that sales process. So it's really helped me in the educational aspect. I'm all about educating the customer and being completely transparent with them.
Heard an interesting phrase not that long ago from one of the manufacturers that we work with. they were also thinking about leads from the perspective of data qualified leads. DQLs, are they good enough to be in our CRM? Should we be kind of working them that way and bringing them into our world from a data perspective, like well before anybody gets to MQL status? Pretty interesting.
That is interesting, and I think really what Taylor's kind of knocking on the door of here with the fact that a focus on sales qualified is really really a tenet of ABM in my view, where you say like everybody that's on that target account list, is is a qualified buyer. They may not be in market, they may not like you, they may not know of you, all those things, but I don't know. I like this whole notion of just, okay, we're starting at SQL, and it's our job to sell them. Let's go. you know, is
Yeah, so something that, really makes an SQL for us is, do they have an industrial furnace, a gas fired industrial furnace? Because that's what our solutions are made for, is gas fired industrial furnaces. So, I do that prospecting, and rather than sending out campaigns or maybe doing ads geared towards people that don't have furnaces, I know from the very beginning that these customers do have them and that our product will work for them. So I think that kind of gives us an upper hand.
yeah.
The very deep level of understanding of the product market fit, for sure.
Yeah, and but you're not worrying about. It sounds as though, I guess, Taylor, I should ask the question rather than put words in your mouth. But you're not. They don't have to have budget, authority, need, and timeline in order to be an SQL for you.
No, because so our systems, what we do is very unique. Really, no other company is kind of in this area yet. Our systems have seen a return of 25% increased productivity, or you can use that the other way and say decreased gas consumption. So, any way that you look at it, there is an ROI on our product.
Since you don't have a lot of competitors in this space, do people know they need you yet?
That has been our toughest obstacle yet, is proving that this technology is needed. So we don't just sell the product, we also do combustion services, and there are a lot of other companies that do that. We started with this new product this year, actually. We call it a furnace screening. So rather than going in and tuning the furnace, which you can see that increased productivity with a tuning, but it might only last a week or two, with the monitoring, you're sure to get that 20% increase consistently, which would be all the time. So we started doing these furnace screenings, and instead of going in and tuning the furnace and saying, hey, we fixed your problem, and them saying, wow, the furnace is operating great, I don't need monitoring, it's operating better than it ever has. We go in and we tell them exactly how inefficient it's operating. We don't fix the problem. And that right there, that number gives them their ROI. So that gives them, if they're operating 13% inefficiently, and we can say we can increase 13%, plus if you use some of our other products, we can get you to 25%. That really lays out a clear ROI for them. So that's kind of how we started breaking into the market.
I love that, having the discipline to not solve the problem at the start. There is a lot of application in sales for that discipline. I would say it's one of the things that really I find separates really good salespeople from mediocre ones. Is really good ones don't give away what they sell, and they're disciplined in how they solve problems. That's really interesting. I don't think I've heard an example like that, Jeff.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah. Huh.
You talked a bit about getting that marketing and sales alignment. You have a small team on the sales side there at PS Energy, and I'm assuming you all work a little bit differently. How are you kind of bringing everyone together to have a similar view into going after those clients, as you were just explaining, those customers?
So, obviously we're in manufacturing and these target markets are very complex and there's no one size fits all solution. And I don't think that there's a one size fits all sales process either. So I'm the youngest salesperson on our team. I do things very differently than some of the other guys on the team. And I think that's totally fine. You know, just having that communication and saying, hey, this is how I like to do it, and having those results showing that it's working on both sides of it, I think that that's, totally fine. And just kind of respecting that not everyone has to do it the same way. There really is no one size fits all sales process. And I believe that with marketing too.
I can appreciate that people can find different ways to succeed. So every salesperson can take a somewhat different approach and put numbers on the board, put you on the spot. Have you seen anything where you're like, man, like that is just backwards? They're wasting their time. I don't do it that way for a reason, and they just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, I do feel that way sometimes. I really feel like we all carry our weight pretty well, which is awesome. Um, I'm very hard to keep pushing on that furnace screening. So I do not want to tune your furnace. I will tune it if you ask me 50 times. Like I want to screen your furnace. I want to give you that ROI. I want to show you how poorly it's operating. And, some people on our team kind of give up on that a little earlier than others, which is totally fine. Business is business. But, I see a future with the product, and I really think, pushing these screenings is so important. And every time we do them, we see how inefficient these furnaces are. We never get on site and they're operating perfectly. So that's really my thing, is just keep pushing for the end product. And that furnace screening, it's not an expensive service that we provide. It's really to see, do they have skin in the game? We have skin in the game. Let's move forward and build this ROI together.
I really love that it didn't just come down to like you're younger, so you use LinkedIn for prospecting more.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? But seriously, I think I'd love that answer.
But I do think LinkedIn is very important.
Yes.
I wanted to kind of key on that. You mentioned how you're the youngest amongst the sales team, relatively new, even just in, out of school somewhat recently. This is an interesting sector that is struggling to attract young talent. And you guys are doing some interesting things around trying to remedy that, especially at PSNERGY, but more broadly as well. Tell us a bit about those strategies and how you're kind of looking to bring more people like yourself into these roles.
Yeah, so really I think that there are two main things that we have to do, and it's educate and expose. So I am the marketing director for Women in Manufacturing, our Western Pennsylvania chapter. And we work with local companies, we work within the community, within schools, and we really try to bridge that gap. And whether that be, hosting plant tours or just telling our stories. So I've been asked multiple times to, just talk about the painting yellow lines and how that really got me into this industry. I truly believe that I would have never been exposed to this industry, or I would have never found my passion for it if I hadn't done that internship or the summer help job. So, just exposing kids to all of the beauty of manufacturing early in life, I think that that's really cool. And also showing them that you don't have to be an engineer and you don't have to be in production. You can love manufacturing and be in finance or sales or marketing. There are so many different opportunities that kind of fall out of that original thought process of being a laborer or being an engineer.
Yeah, I think that there aren't many kind of employers that span the gamut of opportunity types, quite like manufacturers, really, because you really don't find that anywhere else. In consulting, we don't have those production type roles, or the you know in the same way. So there's just so many additional opportunities. And in the last few weeks, you actually participated in Manufacturing Day as well, and brought, I would assume, a bunch of fresh faces into the plant. What did you find there, and how did that come about?
So, Manufacturing Day is a really cool event that the Manufacturer and Business Association, located in Erie, hosts. And I think this year there were about 2,500 kids that came. It's really like a miniature trade show for them. So, all of the companies go to our Bayfront Convention Center and they set up their real life trade show booths. And the kids walk it like a regular trade show. There are breakout sessions, so I was lucky enough to host one of those with some of my other board members from Women in Manufacturing. And it was so cool to sit there, and we did a panel discussion. So we answered a few scripted questions, but the kids were so engaged and they started asking us questions, and they were so interested in learning about the difference, not the difference, but the challenges that women face in the industry. I think about 10 kids had asked me after the fact, well, how many women are in manufacturing? And I got to tell them the statistics. There used to be 9% women, and over the last 20, 30 years we've increased to 28% women in the industry. And seeing their eyes light up and getting excited that there are different opportunities and different paths that you can take and be in an industry that you like, that was so cool for them to see. And I love being able to share that with them.
I bet the happy hours are pretty raucous, though, right? Like at the trade show.
Actually, okay, so thankfully they do a happy hour for the exhibitors afterwards, but
Good thing.
it was awesome, just seeing that many faces walking around and interested in everything that these companies are doing. It's really refreshing.
What's the most surprising question you got?
Somebody had asked us during the panel how much we get paid, and my my friends were taken aback a little bit. On the spot, I got to come up with the answer. Well, we get paid well enough that we're willing to sit here and tell you guys that you should pursue careers in this industry. So
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's nice.
well thought out on your feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Taylor, we've got a future for you in politics if this whole PS energy thing doesn't work out.
I don't know how I came up with that.
That's a pretty good redirect.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Listen, kid, the real question here is, I can just imagine trying to get like a CNN down the line interview or something. What I look, I really appreciate the notion that exposure is really key here. It's hard to fall in love with stuff you don't know about. It's hard to be interested in things you haven't seen.
Both on the technical sales front and on the recruitment of young kids into the industry front.
Yeah.
Drawing those back together.
But as you think about what we need to do in manufacturing to really crack this HR nut and really get people excited about the space, is there anything that you can anything on your mind that you're like, this is manufacturers need to do more of this?
Well, I think something that we're not good at, and I think a lot of other companies aren't very good at, is showing what you're doing behind closed doors. And I think that that's the thing that got me interested, and that's really what gets other people interested as well, is opening your doors. And a lot of times companies, if you have certain contracts and things like that, you can't necessarily post on social media, but open your doors and bring people in, whether it's people in the industry or people in the community. and let them come in and, walk around your facility for an hour and show them what you have going on. I think that that's really one of the most important things, is just being willing to open your doors and kind of explaining your process to people, really getting them interested in what you do. You would never know. One of our customers down the road manufactures Cummins engines and KitchenAid mixers all in one facility. You would never know that that was down the street. And I think that that's so cool. So, things like that, it's just open your doors and show the community what you're doing and invite them in.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting advice, and it feels to me, I don't know, I'm dating myself now, but it just feels to me like when I was a kid, that seemed to happen more. I don't know. And I come from a very small area of a very rural part of Canada, for goodness sakes, but it seemed like there was I don't know, I think that's a fairly natural motion for a manufacturer to get back to, like this. And like every manufacturer on the planet loves to do a factory tour for the most part.
Yeah.
It's just like they don't always just think about doing it on a community-wide nature, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I grew up in similarly rural kind of conditions, and my father was a draftsman before he retired at a manufacturer of RF radio transmitters. Huge things. And I used to spend every one of the, take your kid to work day and job shadowing day and all of that, just so, going around the metal stamping plant and all of the other parts of that. So I saw every aspect of that. And then they ended up being our first manufacturing client when we opened Kula. So,
but of course, I mean, not everybody
not everybody gets that experience.
Yeah, I think Taylor's advice here is really solid. Open doors to the community and understand that the impact of that is more than just the PR reputational side. There's a real kind of planting the seeds of manufacturing's future, really, in that.
Something that I think about too is, when you open the doors to the community, people are going to talk. So in marketing, I always think that the best reference is word of mouth. If one of my customers tells, somebody that they know about our product, that means more than any campaign I can run or any educational content I can put out. So, it works that way in the community as well. You have no idea who these people might know. They may just know your next biggest customer.
Yeah. Or your next hire in the marketing and sales department.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Well, what do you, as we come to a close here, what are you most looking forward to, as we go into 2024?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing PS Energy's growth. We're at a point right now where, we're just having growing pains, where we have all of these orders. We have, our new building that we're moving into. We're putting all of our manufacturing and our research and development, our offices all together in one. And from a personal note, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that collaboration helps us grow. And then from an industry standpoint, I'm really just excited to see, hopefully, since COVID is no longer, I know that's not really a thing, but since it's not really, front facing anymore, I'm really hoping to see that more people are hosting plant tours or opening their doors, networking happy hours, things like that. I think one of the coolest things about the industry is really the people. And that's my favorite thing, is getting to connect with different people in the industry, whether that be in person or virtually. So I really just want to see, the industry continue to come together and move forward.
Taylor, it's been wonderful having you on the show. I think it's been a fascinating conversation, and led me to some interesting paths I didn't think we were going to go down. So this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Kula Ring with Carman Perry and Jeff White. Don't miss a single manufacturing marketing insight. Subscribe now at kulapartners.com/The Kula Ring. That's KULApartners.com/The Kula Ring.